Today, I am speaking with Sammith, the founder and principal attorney at Sanctum Law in Bangalore. Sammith's practice is largely at the intersection of real estate, regulation, and complex disputes, and he regularly advises top developers and stakeholders in this sector on high stakes legal issues. He studied law at the University Law College, Bangalore, where he graduated with gold medals in jurisprudence and family law, and later went on to pursue further studies at the London School of Economics. He has also worked with leading law firms such as Cyril Amarchand Mangaldas and AZB and Partners before founding his own practice. Today, I want to explore not just the legal work he does, but the journey behind building a niche practice relatively early in one's career. Sammith, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Vinod. I think it's a warm Sunday afternoon and you seem to be sitting on your balcony. Should be hot.
No, it's in fact slightly colder here. So that's the reason
Yeah.
I sat in this balcony. Otherwise, I usually do the podcast from the other balcony.
Well,
But I'm good. I'm
yeah,
very
beautiful.
very happy to be doing this, particularly because I normally do more on health, fitness and relationships. This is the first time I'm doing something different because I also think it's very important to expand our own horizon and learn new things and also share new knowledge with our audience. Okay,
Oh,
great.
thank you so much. Thank you so.
Thank you. Okay, we'll start with the present moment of where you are. So you work at the intersection of law, real estate, and regulation in Bangalore, often dealing with complex disputes and regulatory issues. For someone outside this complete legal framework and profession, what does your typical day look like and the world look like for you?
For me, most of the days that I go in is all about troubleshooting. I think lawyers, in short, are troubleshooters for most part. See, there are a lot of ways that people describe lawyers. People describe them as strategists. People have other things to say, but I think for a large part of our careers, at least as litigators, what we primarily do is troubleshooting with clients' issues, clients' problems, the daily routine of struggles of litigation, and going around things like that. So a typical day would essentially start with preparing for a case on that particular date. Sometimes the case reaches, sometimes matters don't reach. There are backlogs that I think you're very well aware of. Patience is a great thing to have in our profession, but most of the days we go in prepared. Sometimes we also have to go in unprepared and try and start facing the barrage of questions from the judge and from the opposition as well. So in a way, it's one of those professions where everyone is trying to get at you, probably, but also at the same time, it's a profession which also takes its respect from trying to be responsible amidst all that and managing and fighting fire. So I really think that a typical day is all about troubleshooting and getting back home, hoping that the troubleshooting that you have done in the day is successful for that particular day at least.
That's very interesting. Going by what you said, it looks like your day is very unpredictable.
Correct. Absolutely. I would really say it's unpredictable, apart from whatever matters that are, posted, and perhaps we have an idea about what may happen in the matter. But most of the times when we go to the court halls, things are always very unexpected. And yeah, you have to think on your feet. As litigators, your USP is to think on your feet. And I think that's a great part of our job.
I think I would like to go a little deeper into that, Samit. It's a very important point that you mentioned about seeing or facing unexpected things and thinking on your feet. And you also mentioned that sometimes you go prepared, but the listing doesn't happen. And sometimes there are situations in which you have to think on your feet and suddenly face a barrage of questions and people
Yes.
trying to get at you. Can you give us a specific example or some examples of what are these unprepared sudden things or barrage of missiles coming at you on a day that you didn't anticipate?
Okay, so if I were just to say it in very, very simple terms, so you go in thinking that your case will run in one particular way. So there is no monologue in the court. All that you see on televisions, all your suits, your Boston legals, and other legal dramas are not what really happens in the real courts here. So there's a ton of procedures that we are faced with every single day. And I believe that the moment we start our day and go into the court, into a matter, so many times that particular day the judge may be upset at something else and he may take it out on you,
Mm.
or there are so many situations where the judge is probably not with you on that matter and takes it out on you, or even if he is with you, then the opposition gets at you. So essentially it's a case of what to say, when to say it, and how to say it. So in a way, I would say the entire crux of what we do in one single day is basically to see what is the psyche and the pulse of not just our own case and our own client, but of all those around us, including the opposition, the bench clerk, the judge. I think the audience watching you, everything matters really.
Matters?
It's a matter of perception, and I think that is what you need to be really quick at when you're on your feet before the court.
I think this is extremely interesting. I think we probably have to dig a little deeper into this perception angle. I'm sure lawyers are prepared on the practice and method of preparation in terms of law, but to get into the room and get a sense of how somebody's mood is, including your opposition and judge and the people, how do you prepare for such a skill? Like, does it take practice?
I think law is one of those professions where you learn early that you never have learned enough.
Hmm.
So there is a long, long learning curve in our profession. Every single day we go out there, we learn new things. And all these things come out as a part of experience. No litigator was born on day one. That is something that I can assure you, that no litigator was born on day one, including the doyens of legal profession. You name the Jetmalanis, the Narimans, the Palkiwalas, whoever it is, everyone developed their practice over a period of time, watching others argue, watching the judges ask queries, how perceiving things. So, in a way, what we do in the court is not just being lawyers ourselves, but also, in a way, probably trying to become psychologists, that we have
Yeah.
to look at the way people are looking at things, the way they perceive things may be completely different from how we perceive things. So you'll have to sometimes break it down, sometimes put it out in a more sophisticated manner. It really depends on that particular day, on that particular case, and in front of a particular judge and against a particular opposition. So there are so many variables when you go out into the court, and each variable is a different variable. You may go to the same judge's court 3 consecutive days, and there may be 3 different ways in which you approach your case and how the judge approaches you in your case. So it really boils down to you know trying to gauge. And every time you go into a court, every time a new judge comes in, the first thing we do as lawyers, at least as litigators, and what we have been taught to do is go try and stand in their court for at least about half an hour, just to gauge and get a sense of how they're functioning, how they're looking at matters, what is their perception of a certain set of matters, a certain class of matters. So these are the things that we really need to get into and try and break it down and understand. And this is primarily if you practice in the high court, because the rosters keep on changing. And when you practice more in onto the trial side and the trial courts, the perception is very, very different. More than learning about the judge, you'll also have to be very, very cautious about what is happening procedurally in your matter. And because procedural aspects are very important in the trial court as compared to the high court, as probably in a writ litigation.
Mhm.
So apart from just learning about the judges, you also need to learn about the procedure, and You also have to have a fair understanding of how things work, and how your opposition also can sometimes help you, how people around you can help you, including the bench clerk, including a peon, including every single person, like a back office person can help you there.
Mm.
That is something that you learn only over time. That is not something that is taught in
Thought.
books. That is not something that you learn as a part of your internships. That is not something that you can take a guidebook and actually see, okay, this is how I practice the law. So you cannot, there is no shortcut to it. You have to learn it
Okay.
the hard way. You have to learn it the painful way.
I think by far, I think this is one of the most interesting learnings for me, listening to you about how a court functions. Because I'll tell you why, right? As a common man who hasn't stepped into court apart from paying a fine once for drunken driving, way back in 2002, that's an interesting story too, right? Mayo Hall.
Okay.
So, what we believe when we, let's say, reach out to lawyers or when we speak to advocates is that law and the rule book takes precedence and that only matters. That is what we think and believe. And when I heard you saying that the judge, the opposition, the people, the peon, or the clerical staff there, everyone plays a role. And then you have to be on your feet in terms of getting a sense of the room of mood of different types of people who are involved and the coefficient of their effectiveness changes. I think it looks like a chess game to me.
So I think over a drink, all lawyers have conversations, how to play 4D chess. So we learn to play
4D
chess
chess.
without actually
Oh,
playing chess at all. So, yeah.
interesting. Cool, cool. Thank you, Samit. I think this was extremely useful for us to understand. So I'll go to the next one. In general, I mean, you come across as someone fairly young, probably, I don't know, 28 to 30 range is how you look to me. I don't know what your age is. It's usually seen a profession where seniority takes decades, yet you seem to have built a fairly specialized practice in real estate and related areas very early in your career. Did you consciously set out to build this niche or did it evolve organically?
I think I really need to take that comment or your compliment with a lot of humility therein, because simply put, law is one of those very few professions where you realize very quickly how you don't know too much, right? So I would still describe that I'm still learning. I'm still in the process of being there, getting there, and even if you have 50 years in the practice, sometimes you still learn every single day. Like, I belong to a school of thought which says that Ramakrishna Paramahamsa famously said, "As long as I live, so long do I learn." I think that is something that, as lawyers, we have inculcated from day one. You're taught that you never know enough,
Mm.
and no matter how much you know, there may be someone else who knows much better than you.
Yeah, yeah.
And that is very true in the profession. Every single time you think your strategy is better, you are almost always bettered by the opposition, or even
Mm.
sometimes by the judge. You cannot really underestimate the bench and the judges also sometimes, because the judges themselves come from a long experience, especially at the high court or the supreme court level. They have their own experience coming through, years and years of experience. They also know how to deal with people, how to deal with lawyers, how to deal with the law. So I think that law as a profession is something that you really have to start carving a niche out of very soon, because the more general you are, the more wayward it gets in terms of understanding or getting a sense of the room. So, real estate is something that I really didn't choose. It wasn't by design, or it wasn't by choice that I wanted to do real estate. I fairly came from a corporate law background. I did antitrust law at the two law firms that I worked
Mm-hmm.
in. And
Mm-hmm.
after that, I felt, okay, let me start out a practice, litigation practice. Of course, I had my father who was a litigator himself, and that in a large portion also probably inspired me to take up litigation in a great way. And I genuinely feel that when I took up litigation, I really didn't want to specialize anything. I wanted to just go with the flow. But the initial set of matters that came through were real estate, and I think it stuck on.
Okay.
It's a niche that, it came calling, it came knocking on my doors, and I didn't say no. That's about it. So rather than trying to specialize in something real estate, I started doing something with my initial clients, and it just continued. It really became very easy for me to develop and step by step get into the process and understand the entire real estate sector to a large extent, at least in Bangalore, if not elsewhere.
That's interesting. And I think you've kept it quite honest and humble by saying that it just happened and you didn't really plan for it. But if you had to choose something at some point while studying or in your early practice, if you had to choose something, what could it have been?
Okay. There's a small story I'd like to say.
Yeah.
I never wanted to become a lawyer in the first place. I had seen my
Mm.
dad as a lawyer. My dad was a regular lawyer. Every single day he used to go, and he had a fairly big practice back in the day.
Hmm.
And I'd say that he had a very successful practice, in fact, not just a big practice, but a very successful practice also. So I used to see him in the court. I used to have, every weekends I used to accompany him. His office was on Brigade Road. So for me, and back in the 90s, early 90s, and early part of the millennium, Brigade Road was the it thing rather
Yeah,
than
yeah.
now where you have multiple places in Bangalore. It was the it thing. So I used to accompany dad to office on a weekend, and they used to work on Saturdays, Sundays, everything. I used to always find it very monotonous, very boring, and I really didn't get a sense of it when I was perhaps accompanying my dad. And I had a lot of interest in history, archaeology
Hmm.
specifically.
Hmm.
And it so transpired that when I was in probably my 11th and 12th, uh, my neighbor, he told me about the national law schools. He told how people get into corporate law, and how law is not just about getting into courts, and there's a huge different world sitting across corporate law, how they work in boardrooms, and
Mm.
it presented a very fancy, sophisticated picture of law to me, and I started exploring. Of course, as a little weak in math, and although I'd taken science in my 11th and 12th, and I felt that okay, I was not going to cut it out as perhaps even an engineer. Archaeology was ruled out because I don't think my parents would ever support that. But regardless, I just told my parents that okay, I want to do law, and my dad
Okay.
was the least bit enthused about it. He was like, "You never wanted to be a lawyer. You said you wanted to be a historian. You said you wanted to be an archaeologist. You said you wanted to be a software engineer. All of those leaving beside. Now you want to do law. See, I leave it to you. It's your choice to make." And he just left it at that. That conversation was a very short conversation with that. But with my mother happens to be a professor of psychology. So she
Wow.
just sat me down and asked me, like, is this really what you want to do? You see your dad every single day. And is this what you want to do? I said, no, I don't want to probably litigate. I want to go and do corporate law
The
and
boardroom.
see the corporate boardrooms, the air conditioned boardrooms are waiting, and that was what I just had in my mind. Right, as a young teenager, you
Yeah.
don't have anything else,
You're
so
actually fantasizing yourself in a coat suit and,
yeah,
but
and
briefcase in a
at that
boardroom.
point in time, see, when I was probably 17 or 18, Boston Legal had just come out, and it was the age when, Star World and all those things were opening up on television here in India. And I think to a large portion, it played a real part in me trying to get influenced by the corporate boardrooms and the sophisticated portions of law rather than getting into the courtrooms here. But it eventually transpired a year into law school. I think I figured out way too quickly that law is not the sophisticated boardrooms as someone else told me that it was.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's very interesting. I think one of the reasons I do podcast Summit is also to unearth these interesting stories that otherwise people don't get to hear from people who are arguing in courts or doing some treatments for people. Because there's a very interesting point that you subtly mentioned that your mother, is a professor of psychology, which probably, I don't know, I mean, I want to ask you, did that really help you anyway? Because you said if you go to the courtroom, you also had to, have a perception of people and a perception of your client and everyone. Did that kind of help you a little bit growing up with your mother's inputs?
So for a large part, I think my father used to be busy in the courts and he used to come home late night. So all my early upbringing days was with my mom trying to tutor me for my regular classes. I was never one who even went to tuitions post the regular school. At least until 10th, I never went to tuition. So probably only in my 11th and 12th, because I had a little bit of difficulty in math, I went to tuitions. But otherwise, I never used to go to tuitions. And my mom had a large part in that. She used to sit me down and tutor me and things like that. And for a large part, I believe that that really helped me try and get a sense of the world, because she used to have this very particular thing. She used to come back home from 4 o'clock, back from work after her college time and everything, and she used to just say, "Okay, I'll give you a little bit of snack. Go play anywhere on the road. I do not care. Like, play anywhere on the road." There used to be a huge playground behind my house, and like we used to play. And I met all sorts of people, interacted with all sorts of people, went to all sorts of classes with people. Be it sport, be it athletics, be it physical training. All those things used to be there. And in the process, you tend to, when you're on the road, essentially, or on the playground, like the original playgrounds, which is a free, fair public playgrounds and not gated community playgrounds, you get a sense of people from all strata of the society. So to a large bit, that greatly influenced my understanding of the world and worldview. And of course, I was in a boarding school for 3 years where I had people come from all parts of the country, and even
Mm.
probably people from Indians, NRIs also were my classmates back in boarding school. So it really did play a part. And my mother's guidance on, okay, after 10th, do not take commerce, do not take arts, you take science, you can do whatever you want. At each step, there was some sort of guidance there, very subtle, none, to be very honest, of forceful, or should I say pressurizing. It was just a nudge, and I probably took that hint, and I started getting into, one by one, I started doing professions. And really, when I said that I wanted to do law, my mom was, she just had those two questions. She said, "Okay, do you really want to do what your father is doing? And okay, if you are trying to get into the corporate law, what is it that you're going to do right now?" So that is when I actually went to a tuition for the first time to prepare for a law school exam. But apart from that, I don't think I've ever had the opportunity to go beyond home to learn. So my mom was a played a great part, I would say, in trying to get to know people. Because she just left me free.
Mm.
So, and she knew where to put the tracks, and where to put the boundaries, and she laid down very clear boundaries without, in fact, putting me under any sort of pressure there. So I would say that it is very formative as a teenager. But there are other things also. I think as you grow in the profession, you tend to learn. I did my undergraduation from a place where we had people from all strata of the society. It was a government law college essentially, and you have people coming in from the most rural places, people coming from the most unprivileged backgrounds, and people had a lot of things to say, and how they perceive things was also helpful. And our college, especially our college, University Law College, was a place where we had a lot of freedom as well. So it really didn't, we learned more outside the classroom than learning inside the classroom. And to a great extent, that also really put in the steps for uh, running today.
Very, very interesting, Samit. I think your foundation with your family and the way your father and mother have guided you seems to have played a great role. I think one more thing I think I would like to explore, apart from, I mean, your father, of course, and mother, they let you decide on your own. Was there any teacher or a mentor or some public figure who shaped the way you thought during those years?
Okay, so I said I went to boarding school. So I did my boarding school, my high school, 8 to 10. I did it at Ramakrishna Mission.
Mm-hmm.
So Ramakrishna Mission is one of those schools which is known to be very disciplinarian, very military-like in its approach and everything. But I truly believe that is one of those places where they embodied the true ideals of Swami Vivekananda, because he said we want man-making, character building education, and
Wow.
that is the type of education we had. So it was not really books that we were learning. We had about 21 playgrounds. It was a huge campus in the middle of central of Mysore. Like, Yadavgiri is a place like probably Bangalore, Sadashivnagar. It's a posh residential locality. It's right next to RK Narayan's house and everything. And it's a huge campus, 80-acre campus, where we played, we ran around. There was a forest in between. There were playgrounds. We used to play all sorts of games: football, volleyball, basketball, kabaddi, kho. I think, and interacting with people across stratas, across India's. In fact, I had classmates. There was a classmate of mine who was probably the first from his entire tribe to even get a formal education. So from
Oh,
yeah, so he was from the BR Hills, and I remember very clearly that he was one of the very like first people to even attend up to class 8. So he
wow.
came from the
Wow.
remotest of places. So you had classmates like that, and I had a classmate whose father, owns a huge group of educational institutions in Bangalore, and there was, I think, we I could interact with people from different segments of the society, and it was truly social engineering, as probably what this country was envisioned for. So that, I think, by itself, the school itself, I wouldn't say a particular mentor or a particular person, but the school and the ecosystem that it presented, and the alumni network that it has later on, that I figured out, had a great role in trying to make me at least a little more disciplined, a little more focused in what I had to do. And also it had a lot to do with the school had this moral education lessons, lessons from the life of Swami Vivekananda. So you used to get inspired by stories, listening to
Mm.
stories from there. And the stories of the alumni from that alumnus or the alumni from that particular institution also used to, in a large part, inspired us. Yeah, of course, like when we were studying, we really knew that only the then Chief Minister of Karnataka, Mr. S.M. Krishna, was from that. But apart from that, I never really knew any lawmaker from there, or someone in the legal profession. But once I came out, I realized that there are quite a lot of people in the legal profession, including sitting judges and senior advocates from that particular institution. So I would really say that apart from my parents, if there's one thing that I attribute my entire career to, it's definitely my schooling at Ramakrishna Mission.
I would have guessed so because I think I should tell this to people that when we were preparing the questions, at least the structure for this podcast, Samit was particular about adding a little bit about Ramakrishna Mission because I think it has actually had a great impact on you as a person, and I could see that with the energy with which you speak to me. Right, I'm
Yeah.
sure
No, no,
you
it's
can.
very.
Yeah,
I would say it's like very passionate about that institution.
yeah.
So yeah,
That really shows up. I really think that we should probably go a little deeper into that, but in the first podcast we just have 5 more minutes, so I'll get into something which will help the common man quickly. And
absolutely, absolutely.
in our in part two, I think I'm going to go deeper into Ramakrishna. I'll cover that part as well. So let's. I think this is something a lot of people are having in their minds, and they're probably a little clueless. Or today you have AI tools and other things helping them. Anyone in their late 20s, 30s, earning, both husband and wife, uninformed home buyer in Bangalore, if they were to buy a flat or let's say house or a land, give us the detailed steps one should look for to be safe, and what are some common mistakes people are doing which they should have avoided.
Okay. I think real estate as a sector is very solid, I would say. But having worked very closely with people,
Yeah.
see, it's the actions of a few cannot define the sector. For a large bit, at least, there are developers who have been there, experienced guys who have been in the setup for years and years together, who have done their fair share of had their fair share of troubles in the day and done it. But the sector by itself is an ever evolving sector, unlike a lot of other sectors which get formalized too soon. So estate sector has formal developers on branded developers on one side, and you have the unbranded developers on one side, and you have a lot of new entrants coming in from various other fields. People coming back from the states with armed with land banks, trying to try their hand in construction, civil engineers getting their hands onto construction or to development and things like that. And you have a lot of informal sector, even real estate, erstwhile real estate brokers or people owning water tankers getting into formation of layouts and small buildings. So there's a huge sector. I would say that the first thing when anyone looks out for buying a property in Bangalore is you start with, if you have some amount of knowledge of the city, I would really suggest that people buy land over buying an apartment or buying a flat. But if you're not from Bangalore, or if you've not had a real experience of how Bangalore works in general, and you want the luxuries of community living, yes, a flat and apartments are also good. So, how to buy a flat and how to buy a land are two extremely different things, I would say. I would really say that there's a lot of difference in buying land versus buying an
Okay.
apartment or buying a flat.
Then let's
But
take one, maybe. Yeah.
yeah, buying a flat, probably,
Yeah.
I think
Let's take that. Yeah.
buying a flat is what youngsters in 20s to 30s at least are looking at. So, buying a flat, the first thing that I would always see is, and I would never compromise perhaps, is the moment you go and approach a project, just do not see it on paper. Actually, go look at the land, where it is situated. What is the approach road to it? What is the surroundings of that particular area? It may be in the most initial stages, but even then, developers would have put some amount of board somewhere, put up the at least the hoardings near the land, and at least have a sense of where the land is, rather than just going blindly by Instagram reels or going blindly by advertisements or advertorials.
Mhm.
So that is one thing that I would really say, that having a physical sense of where the apartment is coming up or where the land is situated, where the flat is being built, is one of the most important things.
Mhm.
Apart from that, the second thing is never compromise on due diligence in respect of both the title as well as the building approvals.
Mhm.
So a lot of people give it to their lawyers saying, okay, is the title good? The title diligence really differs from a diligence of the development approvals and the construction approvals that are there, and the compliances, regulatory compliances for the construction. So a title due diligence never really puts in a full picture of the construction diligences and the construction compliances. So many times it so ends up that people have ended up purchasing flats for which there is no occupancy certificate at all. They'll say
Mhm.
the building has occupancy certificate. The builder would have probably developed one or two flats more, or put in a floor more, and he sells you that flat. So
Right.
merely because he says there is an occupancy certificate, and he sells you a flat on the probably the topmost floor, saying that okay, this is a penthouse flat, it really doesn't mean that it has a regulatory approval or a regulatory compliance. So there is a huge risk involved in not knowing the construction approvals and the construction compliances that are there. So one thing that people should never compromise is get get yourselves a good lawyer, not just a lawyer from the bank. People say that
Mhm.
or a lot of developers would say, oh, it is approved by so and so
Yeah.
nationalized
Yeah.
bank,
Yeah.
so and so private bank, so and so housing finance, all those things. Merely because it is approved, it doesn't mean anything until and unless you really have it looked at by your lawyer.
Mm.
Nothing is really neutral. So I would
Perfect.
really suggest that due diligence is one. And the moment the developer or someone says that the flats are selling out quickly, you need to make XYZ payments before you even enter into an agreement of sale, before you even get your fair share of papers, rather than a small token deposit, people asking little substantial sums of money. I think that's a red flag there.
Red flag.
It's
Okay.
it's a clear red flag that wherever people are asking for more money at the very beginning, even without giving papers, not just the booking amount maybe say 50,000-60,000 rupees, and beyond that, I think if people are asking more and if people are really demanding more, it's a clear red flag.
Got it. I think this is very interesting. I think the main information for anybody who wants to buy a flat is don't just go with the bank lawyer, do the diligence with a good lawyer. So, Samit, roughly give a range of how much does it cost for anyone? Let's say they're buying a property of 1.5 crores to CR. What's the cost involved in getting a due diligence done from one of the lawyers?
Okay, so lawyers, like a lot of law, to put a price cap or a price range is very difficult for lawyers, because
Yeah.
lawyers operate at really different price bands. Some lawyers may do it for as less as 10,000-15,000 rupees, but there are other lawyers who charge about 1.5 2 lakh rupees also. So there's a huge band that is there. But what I would really say that when you go to a lawyer, your approach should be not to bargain so much with the lawyer. I'm not saying that out of prejudice because I'm a lawyer or something like that, but just to understand and gauge whether the lawyer knows what he's looking at,
Yeah.
whether the lawyer is able to actually put in his genuine time into looking at the papers rather than glancing through the papers and giving it to one of his younger colleagues to just glance through it and thereafter frame some sort of an opinion. So just find someone who's dedicated and sincere insofar as at least putting their effort into it. They have the requisite time. And the second thing I would really say is, see, the price band there may be no average. When I said the price band ranges from say a few thousand rupees to a lakh and a half or above that also sometimes, right? And you would really try to say you average it out, it comes up to 50 to 60,000 rupees.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that 50 to 60,000 rupees sometimes can save you the
Crores.
entire, crores of rupees that you're earning, hard earned money, your sweat that you're putting into getting a flat, getting the place of your own. And I believe that at least in India, there is a lot to do with owning a place, right? Rather than renting out a place, having a place of your own is culturally very rooted
Yeah.
in this particular country, at least. And we Indians are, rooted to the land. So every time when we look out for property, I think there's a common thing people say that, you should have some sort of, in Kannada, we say runa. So, which means that you should have some sort of a connection or some sort of, that.
Samit, I'll have to probably pause here because I think we are just less than a minute short to end.
Okay,
So, and
no
this,
worries.
I think I will. I don't know how the time went because it's been an interesting discussion. Just having a chat with you on a bright Sunday afternoon. I'm going to schedule a couple of more sessions with you so that we get to learn a lot more about you, your early career, and how you set up this practice, along with going detailed into the murky world of the real estate. So thank you so much for coming on air today, and it
Absolutely.
was an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much, Vinod. I think we had a great session today, and I look forward to speaking with you again soon.
I really can't wait, man. I think it's been one of those discussions where I hardly knew you, but the way the discussion went, I think I'll become very good friends with you soon.
Certainly. I'd be happy to meet. So,
Okay.
yes.
I'll look forward to sharing more of it with people. I'll fix up the part two with people with you pretty soon. Thank you, and you have a great day, man.
Yes. Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you. Have a great rest of the Sunday.
Thank you.